Happy 2022 and Happy New Year! This is Stacy from Reads of an Apple, and I am here to figure out what the best books of 2021 were. I was going to do a big blog post going everything and going over how I'm making my decisions, but decided that would be a really long blog post, not that I don't do those, but I figured a video would be a little bit more manageable and I can kind of talk through my feelings as I'm filling them out. This year I made some brackets to help me figure out my best read, and I went through and did month by month to figure out which was kind of my favorite reads of the month, and then I ended up doing 3 separate brackets. So we've got contemporary romance, historical romance, and then I combined paranormal, fantasy, and sci-fi. So today we're going to just be looking at contemporary, or at least for this video. Alrighty, so here is the blank template. I made it in Canva, and it is linked above if you'd like a copy of it. If you don't use Canva or are struggling trying to get it from Canva, feel free to send me a message and I can send you a copy of the PNG file, no problem. All of my information is in the sidebar. Also at the bottom of the blog is the Romancelandia calendar I've created, and on the first of each month is a contact me Google form. So either or, just feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need a different format of the bracket. So as you can see, with the brackets, you need a certain number of contestants or options to make it work best. However, as you can see, we ended up with 4 empty spaces. I chose to make those bonus books. Sometimes, especially this past year, I binged a lot. Either binged a lot of a subgenre or an author or a series, especially with readathons I was participating in. So I thought, oh, it's really hard. I love book 2 and 3 in the series. I can't really choose a favorite. How am I going to choose? And the bonus books kind of allowed me a little bit more playroom on really getting the option to figure out which is going to be my favorite book of the year. Like I said, we're just going to focus on contemporary here, but we'll do a quick rundown of where we're at. So we've got January versus October, March versus December, May versus bonus book 2, July versus bonus book 4, September versus February, November versus April, bonus book 1 versus June, and bonus book 3 versus August. However, I do have one caveat, and that is May is technically a bonus book from June. I didn't read any contemporaries in the month of May, but I had like 4 books that I had a hard time choosing from the month of June. So I ended up with like a bonus book 5 or June number 2. So I pulled one of my June ones, so May is actually technically not going to be May, but we'll go with it. So here's the blank template. I went ahead and already got my 16 choices out. Also, you'll see in the blog post, I'm going to do 2 or 3 honorable mentions for each bracket. I really had a longer list than 16, but I was able to, once I narrowed down the 16, or I was really having trouble on the bonus books, I thought, I'll make a couple honorable mentions that were still favorites, but didn't make the brackets. So let's pull up. I'm going to be using Photoshop CS5. I got this back in college. I'm sure it's super outdated. I haven't used it in I don't know how long, but we're just going to be simple, dragging and dropping and resizing. So simple, easy, and there we are. So here is the bracket with our 16 choices up, and we will just go ahead and get right into it. So we'll zoom into 100%. And let's start up at the top here. So, alrighty, we've got January versus October. Funnily enough, these were both the contemporary choice that was chosen for the Smart Women Read Romance podcast exclusive Patreon review. Love Lettering is by Kate Claiborne. It is a standalone. I think she has a couple other series or books that are like in a same series vibe, but they're not technically a part of the series. I think I'm not 100% sure. I know there was a new book that kind of has the same style, at least of cover, but I don't think that like they're connected like a normal series. Then we have Unraveling Him, Claire Kingsley. This is the third book in the Bailey's Brothers series. I know, having read Claire Kingsley before, I ended up reading the first 2 books before Unraveling Him, and then thanks to my love of Unraveling Him, I ended up binging the rest of the series, and am now completely caught up. But it would not surprise me if Unraveling Him ended up being in the running for a favorite book this year. I absolutely loved it. Our hero is pretty much the perfect book boyfriend, and I was able to connect a lot to our heroine. She works in a car repair shop, and I don't work in a car repair shop, but I do work in a mechanic repair shop for lawnmowers and lawn equipment. So there was a lot of things I could really connect with her about, especially when she's running the office, because that's what I do. So that was a really fun one for me. It really touched me. I bought it in paperback right away, and I've even kind of glanced through and reread some of my favorite scenes if I needed a little pick-me-up. So we're going to go ahead and pull out Unraveling Him. Surprisingly enough, this one is a fairly easy, clear winner here. So we will just drag and drop. I don't know if I'm going to speed up all of this for you guys. So I'll either cut it and you'll see me here in a couple milliseconds, or I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up and you see all of this, but I will stop talking and get that taken care of. Okay, so that we are done with our first bracket here, and time to move on. Now we have March and December. So for March, I have His Big City Neighbor by Jackie Lau. This is the first book in her Cider Bar Sisters series. This is another one set in Toronto, I think, Canada. It's in Canada, I know that for sure. I don't know why I said that as a question. But yeah, so it's set in Canada. I believe it's in Toronto. It's a interracial couple, and it's super cute. I love Jackie Lau. She's been one of my favorite contemporary authors for the past couple years, which is saying something because I usually didn't read too much contemporary until this past year. And then we have December, which is another Canadian author, and this is set in the Gold Rush Ranch series. This is book 3 and the newest release. It came out in the beginning of December. I was actually binged the first 3 books in the series. There's 1 and 2 and a 1.5 novella in November. And then when I saw the Front Runner was supposed to come out in a couple weeks, I was like, perfect timing. So I'm super excited. I had to get through a couple book club books and the Historical Romance Readathon, but that was the first book I picked up after Historical Romance. Loved it, gave it 5 stars, flew through it so quickly, and I can't wait for book 4 to come out in March, is what she had posted in the back of the book. So hopefully it still comes out in March, and I can't wait for more. Well, alright, I love Jackie Lau, but this is a fairly easier decision. Elsie Silver just blew me away, and I absolutely loved The Front Runner. It's like a 1.25 in my list of favorite books by her, even though she's only released like 4. But I adored The Front Runner. I don't know if it's tied for first, or it's really close to being one of my favorite books of this series. But it was so sweet. These are both kind of contemporary, feel-good romances. Elsie Silver's is a little more small town, set on a ranch. We've got horses. I love the way she writes the horses. They actually have their own personalities and their characters in and of themselves, and they're so sweet. In this one, the main horse that we deal with is a colt, so he's super rambunctious and sweet, and I love Elsie Silver. I love the series, if you like small town romance or horses or whatever, I highly recommend it. Okay, so now we are all good to go, so let's move on. So now we have May versus bonus book number 2. So we have Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. This is the 3rd book in Sophie Lark's Brutal Birthright series. One of my favorite Sophie Lark books ever. I'm kind of sensing a theme here, which you'll see later on. But the way that grief and just loneliness is discussed in this book for Nico and for Camilla just really hit me and touched me. And I just loved the way that they were able to connect and share parts of themselves with each other. And they almost innately understood how the other felt without, they had the conversations, but they weren't, sometimes they were just able to sit in silence and understand each other. And I loved it. It really spoke to me. Plus it was also a heist book, which is super fun. I haven't read very many heist romances, and it's definitely my favorite book of the series. Oh, I love Nico. He's the bad boy car guy. And then once again we have Camilla, or Camille? It's either Camille or Camilla. I can't remember if it's an E or an A. But she is a car mechanic, so apparently I have a thing for women mechanics too. But, you know, my dad's a mechanic, I work in a mechanic shop. Mechanics kind of do it for me, and I love characters that I can see being in my life and around me. Super fun. Dirty Letters is the bonus book number 2. This is a standalone by Vi Keelan, Penelope Ward. This book was really touching. It's about 2 people who are pen pals and become really good friends. One, our hero is in, I want to say somewhere in the UK, and then our heroine is here in America. She goes to a concert, things happen, she ends up getting traumatized, a friend of hers dies. I can't remember what exactly happens, but it was a fire or something happened at the concert, like pyrotechnics or some sort of issue. And she kind of turns into an agoraphobe and anxiety and gets a lot of issues from the trauma that she experiences. However, what happens is she stops writing him and he becomes kind of angry. And eventually she reaches back out and they get in touch again. He is now a famous rock star here in America, and she is a really famous author, but her only real friend anymore is her older therapist. And I loved the way that I love epistolary romances anyway, and I loved the pen pal portion. It didn't go on too long though. I almost would have wished it to go on a little bit longer, but it felt right. But I just loved the epistolary part. But I loved how when they met in person for the first time, they still could feel that connection and all the emotions that they had for so long. And there was a lot of hurt on both sides. But when he learned what she went through and why she stopped writing to him, he was still hurt, but he was also understanding. And I just loved the way that they both worked together to help her be okay and not just comfortable with going outside, but comfortable with dating someone in the public eye. And I loved it. And a lot of the times you'll see, in this case, the hero make a lot of concessions for the heroine because she is dealing with issues. But I loved here that there was a lot of emphasis on he can't give up too much and lose his happiness just to help her with her issues. There has to be some sort of give and take and compromise between the two, and it was so well done. I actually had owned this before I read it in paperback. I got it in a book sale or as a gift or something like that. So I was super excited that when I read it, I actually loved it. And I had to put it on here. If anything else, just the way that the mental health aspect was covered and dealt with was just so heartening and just really well done. And if you like books with mental health representation, especially with like an agoraphobe with PTSD and memory and stuff like that, it's really good. I loved it. As much as I loved it, though, I gotta give it to our boy Nico. They both were emotional reads for me, for sure. Although most books I love are emotional reads for me. Also, crazy enough, we both got black and white covers here too. So somehow these ended up kind of being paired together. But that's fine. So we will move on. I probably could have been doing that while I was rambling here, but whatever. We're moving on. Alrighty, so now we've got July versus bonus book 4. So July is The Rebel by Sophie Lark. I did a lot of binging of Sophie Lark over the summer, especially once I found out that she was going to do a couple live shows on Jen with the Book Refuge's channel. So I wanted to kind of get caught up so I didn't get any spoilers or anything there. So The Rebel's book 2 in the Kingmaker series, which is actually a spin-off of the kids from Brutal Birthright and one of her other series. This is my favorite book in the series. I absolutely loved it. I loved how much he was like, you're mine. I'm gonna get you out of this crazy deal that your father made. And I don't want to give away too much because they all kind of connect with each other. But it was just so good, and I loved seeing him work. I believe, if I remember correctly, he is actually Nico's son. No. He's Ada and Callum's son. Nico's daughter is actually the new book that's going to come out that has... I don't know if it's going to be Kingmakers 5, but it has the same similar thing, but it's Sabrina, which is Nico's daughter. But anyway, so The Rebel was really good. Loved it for sure. I'll link all of my reviews down below if you want to learn more, but I'm going to try not to ramble too much more here. And then we've got Off the Record by Shel Sloan. She is another new author to me. I should have mentioned that too. Savage Lover was a new author. Sophie Lark was a new author to me this year as well. But Off the Record is a really sweet sports romance, but it's an older sports romance. It's between it's the Nashville Fury football team, so NFL, and a reporter is covering the team, and she ends up having a romance with the new head coach. It was such a unique take, and I loved that it was with a coach and not a player, and with her, like, there was the contention there of her trying to do her job, and him being a coach, and, you know, professional integrity and all of that. But I loved how different it was from most sports romance I've read, and I really loved it. I bought this in paperback. I actually got it with some Christmas gift cards I got, so I have it now. There is a second book about, I think, her sister or her friends that we kind of see with one of the other coaches in the background. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my TBR and I want to read it soon. I don't know if there's going to be more in the series after that, but I definitely enjoyed it. These two books have completely different vibes though. The Rebel is a little more dark and gritty. Off the Record was a little, like, more swoony and sweet. I think between those two, I think I gotta give it to The Rebel. It just hit me a little bit more, and I think I read it a little bit quicker, so we will pull up The Rebel. It looks like next round will be Sophie versus Sophie. Okay, alrighty, so we are halfway through round 1. Okay, so next we've got September versus February. These are also both new authors to me this year. As you can tell, most of the contemporary reads this year are new authors to me. So we've got To Hate Adam Connor. This is the second book in the Love and Hate series. It's pretty much a duet. I really loved both. I actually ended up buying these in paperback before I read them again, like the other one. However, I bought these because I saw there was going to be cartoon cover releases, and I wanted these nice pretty covers first. So when I read them both, they were both 5 stars. I definitely think I liked To Hate Adam Connor a little bit more. And so we see Adam Connor is a single dad movie star. He's gone through a horrible divorce, and he is living next door to the hero who was the movie star from the first book. And I can't remember if they're married now or if they're just engaged, but she has her best friend move in next door, and they both kind of start to peep on Adam Connor. One day, when she's peeping on him because she hears him playing in the backyard, they go inside, and his young son is playing in the pool and almost drowns. She jumps the fence to save him, and then she kind of ends up getting arrested, and there's contention between them because he thinks she's a peeping Tom, which she is, but it's a good thing she was peeping at that moment because she helped save his son. And then she ends up kind of being the only person that the son trusts and wants to be around, so she kind of ends up getting hired to be the nanny, and it's their romance. It was super sweet. I love single dad romances, and I just loved how he was so patient because she had a lot of issues. She'd been hurt a lot. The beginning of the book, she has a horrible breakup and moves out of her boyfriend's house. They were living together because when they graduated college, he just kind of moved across the country without asking or discussing anything with her, and it was not a good breakup. But I just loved the way that he was patient with her, but also knew how and when to push her without going too far. And I just loved her and his son was such a sweetheart, and he was such a confident dad, and I loved it, and how protective he was over his son. And it broke my heart when he would capitulate to his ex-wife, but he did it in hoping for his son to have a good relationship with his mom. And it broke my heart at times, but it also gave me all the good cozy feelings. So I absolutely loved it. And then I also have another new author, Trouble with the Guy Next Door by Holly Remay. This is the first book in her Rock Bottom series. It's, I don't know, she's more curvy. I don't know if she's plus size, but two guys move in next door. She's a little more introverted and kind of a nerd, and she starts crushing on him, but she doesn't think that, like, she kind of prejudges him and thinks that she's not the kind of girl that he would normally go for because she is on the nerdy side and the curvier side, and it's their relationship. It was super cute, super steamy. I really liked their dynamic together, and it was really cute. A lot of what Holly Renee writes is new adult romances, so I haven't quite read too much from her outside of this series, which I have read the full trilogy. I do wish there was another book in it because there is a couple characters who we didn't see get HEAs. But anyway, so I really enjoyed them. It's definitely on my wish list, the full trilogy is. As you can see, there's another book by her over here. So I really loved them. I gotta say though, To Hate Adam Connor has to take it. It was such a good book. They both were good books, but the single dad aspect, I feel like this one was a lot longer too, but I think I flew through it just as quick. So I'm going to have to give it to Hate Adam Connor here. Okay. Alrighty, I'm going to take a drink here and then we'll keep going. Okay. Alrighty, so moving on, we've got November versus April. And we have the book that started it all for me was Elsie Silver, the first book, her debut book, the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, Off to the Races. Billy and Vaughn. Oh my gosh, Billy and Vaughn. This is my favorite book that she's written so far, closely followed by The Frontrunner. Oh, the way that Vaughn deals with the grief over his grandfather's passing and the struggles he has by his other family grieving differently than him, and him feeling that he's not either grieving properly or just struggling with going through his grief differently, and the acceptance that Billy helped him find in his grief, and accepting that this is how he's grieving and this is how he needs to grieve. Oh, it wrecked me. This book had me crying. This book had me laughing. I loved Billy. I mean, she annoyed me a little bit more in the other books, but I loved her in this book. And she's been through her own trauma. And I didn't really mention it before, but Elsie Silver, oh boy, she knows how to write the theme. Her heroes have these lines that just make you swoon and get all Twitter-pated, and I love it. Oh, it's so good. Plus, we get to start off the Gold Rush Ranch. We meet Dee Dee, a horse that Billy's there to train and turn into a racehorse. And it's just, oh, I just loved it. And I loved that her comfort place was laying on a blanket out in the pasture with her horse nearby. And they discuss heart horses. It's just, I'm like horse girl adjacent because my aunt had horses. And I always loved going up to visiting her, and Starfire was the horse that I would say is her heart horse. And I remember just riding Star when we would go up there, and she was such a sweet horse. And I know my aunt has pictures of her sitting in the pasture with Star's head in her lap and just cuddling her the way that she can as a horse can. I love horses. Even though I never officially had horses myself or was a horse girl, quote unquote. But, I mean, we haven't even talked about the other book, but I know Off to the Races is gonna win it. It's just, I loved it. It's just so good. I know I said it before, but if you haven't read Elsie Silver, please read Elsie Silver. And this one is more in the sports romance zone with equestrian stuff, because we do see the horse racing in here. We see it a lot more in the second book because the heroine's jockey. But I haven't read very many equestrian sports romance, so that was also super fun and unique as well. The other book we have is Trouble with the Fake Boyfriend. This is the third book in the Rock Bottom series. I remember really loving this one, and I remember thinking this book was a 5 stars. I couldn't think of a reason why it wouldn't be 5 stars. But at the time, I'd given Trouble with the Guy Next Door 4 stars, but I enjoyed that one more, so I decided to bump them up. I decided to bump Trouble with the Guy Next Door up to 5 stars, and just leave my little nitpicks there. Trouble with the Fake Boyfriend. Fake dating. It's one of, if I remember correctly, I think book 2 is the hero from book 1's sister and one of his friends, and then book 3 is, because when they move in together, or when the boys move in Trouble with the Guy Next Door, I think it's the roommate from the hero and heroine from that book fake dating here, and one of them goes back to the other's hometown with family, kind of a thing. I think she goes to his hometown, and I can't remember if it's for a wedding or a party, or I don't know, there's some sort of thing. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I obviously don't remember too much about it, but it's been since April, and I read this in November, and this book just hit me in all the feels. So another fairly easy choice for me. We're going to go with Off to the Races. And I know I'm kind of blabbering on here, but we might not get into this as much as we go through the other rounds here. So I'm going to just minimize this here. Alrighty. Okay, so we are almost done. Alright, so bonus book 1 versus June. So bonus book 1 is Meant to Be by Terry Osborne. This is the first book in her Anchor Island series. This is also her debut novel. I picked this up because it's my favorite trope, wrong sibling / cousin. Sibling is more my jam, but I do accept wrong cousins because then it's not as, it's a little easier to get away with. So we've got a heroine. She went to college to be a lawyer. She's now working as a researcher for a law firm where her fiance is also a lawyer. And they're gonna go home to Anchor Island. They live in the city. If I remember correctly, like Boston? I don't know, one of the bigger cities on the East Coast. And she's gonna go home to meet his family for the first time. They live on a tiny little anchor. They have to take a tiny little anchor island. They don't live on an anchor, oh my gosh. But anyway, so she is headed home. He has a work thing, so she is going to go meet his parents and his brother alone, and then he's gonna catch up. So when she's on the ferry boat getting to the island, she's kind of freaking out in her car. A guy shows up, helps calm her. He's got his dog with him. It's super cute the way that they just kind of banter, and he keeps her mind off of the fact that she's on a boat over the water. And then it turns out that he is going to be her brother-in-law. But they are a much better match, and they keep getting thrown together, and you can just feel the tension between them and how he really is just kind of making her assess what she's doing with her life and the choices that she's made. And a lot of them she's making, like she went to law school because that's what her grandparents wanted her to do when she was taken in by them. I can't remember what happened to her mom. I feel like she was flighty and then passed away or something like that, but her grandparents take her in. She goes to law school because that's what they wanted her to do, not because she enjoyed that kind of a thing. And then she's stuck being a researcher because she doesn't really want to push for more, and she's happy with the way things are, but is she really happy? So he kind of really makes her assess her life. And I just love the small town community, and it felt even more small town because they're all like trapped on an island. And then when she's there and people start kind of coming over to take over the island, big corporations kind of things, stereotypical small town stuff, she ends up using her law mind, I guess, and her knowledge to kind of help them all keep this big corporation from kind of coming in and putting all of the small town businesses out of business. And it was super sweet. The tension was really good. We didn't really get much steam. I did wish, I give this book 5 stars. I loved it. It started me off on a contemporary binge, which is like the first contemporary binge I've been on since like high school. And I really, really enjoyed it. I did wish that she had a conversation with her fiance, the brother, earlier in the book, because I wanted to see more of them together and happy, and it doesn't happen till probably the last 20% or so. We do get a really sweet epilogue, and it is dealt with more in book 2, because the book 2 is her ex-fiance's book, and his romance with one of the ladies that lives and works on Anchor Island and him dealing with coming back to town, and is he really happy working for the big law office. But anyway, that's book 2. I definitely need to finish the series and read more. I just didn't pick up book 3 yet because it seemed like our heroine was dealing with domestic violence or domestic issues, and I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit of a heavier read, so I haven't picked it up yet. But I definitely want to try to at least get through 1 or 2 more books of the series in 2022. So there's that, and then A Bullet Between Us by Kay Dolce. I believe this is her first adult romance. I found this thanks to Jen at the Book Refuge. She's the mafia romance queen, and this is the first book in the Moretti family. The second book isn't out yet. I can't wait for the second book. There was a limited edition cover that was recently released that I definitely want to try to get if it's still available. This is probably one of my favorite mafia romances ever. I absolutely adored this book, and I loved how different it was. It was just so... It entranced me, and I absolutely adored it. I bought it in paperback right away once again, and when the next book is coming out soon, when we get a release date, I'm definitely going to reread this one before, just to kind of touch base and catch back up with the family and the brothers. And I think I have an idea who the next book is, but I don't know for sure. I'm not trying to look too much into blurbs and what's going to happen next outside of when the next book is going to be released, because I don't want to spoil or get too much into it. But so we have our heroine, and I should be better about writing down names, but I didn't write names, so that's on me. But anyway, so our heroine lives in New York City. She witnesses a crime from, I think they kill a guy, and it's mafia, and she witnesses the crime. While she gets injured, they attempt to kill her. She gets cut in her neck. However, a good Samaritan stumbles across her and ends up taking her to the hospital. She survives. She is so traumatized. This guy is a super nice guy. He's more than willing to help her out. She doesn't really know who to trust. It seems like some of the cops that are there might be in the mafia's pocket because they're kind of acting sketchy. So she convinces this good Samaritan to help her escape. He gives her some clothes. He gives her some money. They make it to a hotel or a motel somewhere nearby. She's going to try to figure out where to go next. And she leaves to go get something like ice or something like that, and she comes back and finds that he's been killed. So it's time for her to go on the run. She's received a phone call from, I believe he is a sheriff or a deputy or something down in Florida, who says that he kind of saw that she was involved in this case, and he can get her in kind of a witness protection type deal if she can get to him in Florida, and he gives her his number in case she has any issues. She ends up going to Florida. He puts her in a house, and in witness protection, we kind of find out that this is kind of fake witness protection, but he assigns one of his beat cops to kind of watch the house, and there's 2 of them, and they switch off shifts. Well, what she doesn't know, and what our other guy doesn't know, is he is actually brother to the same mafia group, just in the Florida branch. He doesn't know why she's there, though. He does figure out that she is extremely traumatized, and he ends up kind of helping her work through her fear and how to protect herself. He has a really sweet Doberman that he leaves with her to help her feel protected. And the way that they just connect, and with his police training, he knows more of the psychology and how to treat someone who's been through trauma. He's been through a lot himself, and even though he's only really blood related to one of his brothers, he has a couple other blood brothers, I guess you would say. And one of them is the head of one of the mafia groups here in Florida that's the same family as the one in New York. So things end up getting real crazy. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Once again, we get super deep in dealing with trauma and mental health from trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's so gorgeous and brilliant. And he is all in for her. Once he starts seeing the person she is behind the trauma, it is just so gorgeous, and he just wants to take care of her and help her make sure that she is okay. I loved Meant to Be, but A Bullet Between Us is the winner. Another fairly easy choice, so we will do that here. So we are almost done with round 1. We've only got one more left, so we'll get A Bullet in Between Us here and go from there. Alright. Oops. If I do it like this, oop, oop, oop. Alright, that's not quite working out for me here. Here we go. Just use the arrow keys and then try to center it a little bit better. Alright, it's not perfect, but that'll work. Okay. Alrighty, so last bracket for round 1. We've got Rushing In by Claire Kingsley. This is book 4 in the Bailey's Brothers series. Our hero is Gavin, the youngest brother. He's kind of a daredevil, and he seems a little laissez-faire, but he really is almost kind of mystical or spiritual, that he has feelings and vibes, and he does things that he gets a feeling he knows he will survive. He's in a wildfire situation, almost loses his life. He has to do one of the special, body tent things while the fire goes over him because he's trapped and they can't get to him in time. Survives through it all, no worse for wear, steps up a curb but gets hit by the fire chief's daughter who's back in town and breaks his leg. So it's their friendship to lovers. He adopts a cat he calls Princess Squeakers. It's absolutely adorable. I loved Gavin. I loved Skylar, and she's a horror writer, and just the way that they connected. And I love Friends to Lovers. It was great. Another 5-star. I love Claire Kingsley. I need to read The Miles Family, which the Bailey's brothers kind of spun off of. And I've started it. I read the first book in that series on New Year's Eve. That was the last book of 2021. But I absolutely loved it. If you love small town romance, contemporary romance, Claire Kingsley is another great author. So Rushing In is my bonus book number 3. And this is against the book from August that I chose. And I had to go with Single Dad Seeks Juliet by Max Monroe. Another new author. I read this and the full trilogy as a recommendation for Shelby Taggart Reads on Bookstagram. She also has YouTube videos as well. Another single dad romance. This is kind of based on The Bachelor kind of a thing, except it's through a newspaper. Our heroine is a writer for the newspaper and is hosting this. Our single dad's teenaged daughter ends up submitting his want ad to be a part of to be the bachelor for this little dating event, and he ends up getting chosen. He's a retired Navy officer, commander. I don't know what his title was, but he was in the Navy. And our heroine is so klutzy, and she talks to herself, and she's just a hot mess. I could connect to her so many friggin' times. I myself am just sometimes a hot friggin' mess, and you're trying to do one thing and you lose sight of something you're holding or something else you were doing at the same time, and then it's just and then it all gets messed up, and then you're just like, what is happening to my life right now? And not like life things, but like little things, like you're holding a cup of water, you bend down to pick something else, the next thing you know, the water's all over the floor, and the other thing rolls away, and you're like, what is happening now? But anyway, I really loved it. I love the way that they connected, and she kind of has to go with him on each of his dates, and that's a little awkward at times. They end up, I don't know, I did wish that they got together a little bit sooner, and so we got to see more of them together, but we do see them together in future books, because, or at least in the next book, because the next book is his firefighter friend that's having issues during this book. But I love it. Once again, I bought it in paperback right away. I've reread certain scenes that just crack me up. This is one of the funniest books I've ever read. The humor just, it hit me. It was so good. I loved it. This was a part of the contemporary romance binge that I went on that meant to be started over a weekend, and I just binged it. I'm so glad that I decided to pick it up off Shelby's recommendation. I loved it. And I really love the formatting in the paperback too. It's really cool. Alright, so we've got our last choice for round 1, Single Dad Seeks Juliet by Max Monroe. I don't think I said this, but this is book 1 in that series, and it's called the Single Dad Collection. The first 2 books are connected. The third book is Grumpy Cowboy, and it doesn't really connect to the first 2 outside of the fact that it's a single dad, but that's set on a ranch, I want to say in like Wyoming, I think. But alrighty, so we will zoom back out here. So we are done with round 1. We've got our quarterfinalists selected. I will go ahead and save here, and then I'm gonna stop the video here, go take a break, drink some water, give my voice a rest, and then we'll come back and keep moving on. But, so we will do that. Well, save as. So I hope you have enjoyed at least listening to me ramble here. We're just going to call this round 2. And we will save it as a PNG. Alrighty, so I will be back in a moment. Okay, so I am back. I finished my coffee, got some water, and we are set to go on. We are now at our quarterfinals for Best Contemporary Romance Reads of 2021. So here we go. Here's where our bracket's looking. Got a good mix of dark mafia romance and small town feel-good romances. Those are kind of mostly what I read contemporary-wise that I really enjoyed this year. So we will just get right back into it for round 2, our quarterfinals. Oh gosh, and we are starting with a tough one. Unraveling Him by Claire Kingsley. Once again, book 3 in the Bailey's Brothers series, and The Front Runner by Elsie Silver, book 3 in her Gold Rush Ranch series. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh, why do I do this to myself? This is a super hard choice. They both... Oh, this is so hard. I don't know which one to pick. Oh no. Oh, we're only in the first quarterfinal. Oh no. Okay, oh gosh. Unraveling Him. Oh, I loved him. I loved her. Alright, I think I'm gonna have to go with Unraveling Him. They both were so good. I mean, honestly, you could pick up either of these books. Of course, they're both book 3 in a series. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Unraveling Him. It just speaks to me just a touch more with the mechanic and her being an office gal for a repair shop, and I think I'm just gonna have to go with that. Although The Front Runner was really great. Oh my gosh, this is such a hard choice. such a hard choice. Okay. But we'll go with that. Unraveling him, we'll move on to the semifinals. Or no. I don't know. Do I know how to do this? Yeah, because it'll be semifinals. And then final too. Okay. Oh my gosh. This is such a hard choice. Oh my goodness. Alright, I already made it. We're good. We're just gonna have to deal with it. I made the choice. Alright, it's final. Okay. Savage Lover and the Rebel. Both by Sophie. Lark. This is another hard one. I think the Rebel is good, but it also plays a lot more into the Kingmaker series as a whole. You really can't read it like you can read it as a standalone. It won't really do much. I don't think it needs much from the first book, The Freshman or The Heir, but it does lead up into book 3, The Bully, a lot. I think I'm going to have to go with Savage Lover. It's a little bit more easier as a standalone. I loved the uniqueness of the heist plot. And I loved the Rebel, but I loved the way that Nico and Camilla, I need to look up her name. It's either Camille or Camilla. Connected through their loneliness and grief. So I think I'm going to have to go with Savage Lover. I feel like Savage Lover could also stand better as a standalone because it doesn't have as much to deal with. Because here we're just kind of dealing with the one mafia family and not both of them. And Nico's kind of off doing his own bad boy thing. Alright, so we're just going to give it to Savage Lover. Alright, it's chosen. We're moving on. Alright, so quarterfinal 3. To Hate Adam Connor or Off to the Races. This one's fairly easier. I gotta give it to Off to the Races. Off to the Races was just so magnificent. I couldn't... Once again, it spoke a lot about grief. I feel like it was a little bit sexier, a little bit steamier. I loved the horse aspect. I think this is a fairly easier choice for me, at least for this round. So we will do that. And then I'm going to try that up here and center that a little bit better. Perfect. Alrighty, so we've got our last quarterfinals. A Bullet Between Us or Single Dad Seeks Juliet. These are two totally different vibes. Oh my gosh. I don't know how I'm going to choose between these two. Alright, I bought them both right away. I binged the rest of the series because of this. I'm highly anticipating the rest of the books because of this. I do have to say I like this cover a little bit more. And the special edition cover is super gorgeous too. But I do have to say Single Dad Seeks Juliet, because I own them both in paperback. I bought them both right away. But I have picked up Single Dad Seeks Juliet to reread some scenes, and I haven't done that with A Bullet Between Us. So I think that's going to be my deciding factor. Although I feel like if I reread a book in its entirety, I'd be more likely to reread A Bullet Between Us, especially before the next book, so I can reacquaint myself with his brothers. But Single Dad Seeks Juliet also, I'm going to have to go with that. It hit my funny bone. It was super, I think I'm going to have to go with that. Although, if you're looking for a unique mafia romance, definitely check out A Bullet Between Us. I think it would have to probably be my favorite mafia romance of the year, for sure. Even though we've got Savage Lover over here. But, if Bullet Between Us was against Savage Lover, it would probably win. But that's not how this works. So, we are done. We are with... Oh gosh, we are done with our quarterfinals. So, it is now time for semifinals. Oh my gosh, this is gonna fly by super quickly. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm gonna start over here. Yep, and I've got to give it to Single Dad Seeks Juliet. I love it. It's... Actually, hold on. Hold that thought. I'm gonna save this as round 3. Just so I can have each one separated here. So save. Okay. Alright, so now... Thinking on me. Okay, so we are gonna do Single Dad Seeks Juliet again. He is the first one. Moving on to our final round. Okay, yep, that's where we're at. Now, Unraveling Him versus Off to the Races. Oh gosh. I love both of these covers. I love both of these series. I love both of these books. I think I do have to say I like the heroine a little bit more in Unraveling Him. And he's a little bit more of a better book boyfriend. But the emotional impact that Off to the Races hit me with in response to grief is just something special. And I very rarely see grief written about like that, and I don't know if Elsie Silver has experienced deep grief like that herself, or knows people who have been through grief like that, but it just... I love the conversation that everyone grieves differently, and you can't tell someone that the way that they're grieving is wrong. Unless maybe it's harmful to themselves, but that's not the situation here. So, this one is a hard choice. It is such a hard choice. I think I'm gonna go with Off to the Races. And here's my reasoning. When I think of the Bailey's brothers, I loved Unraveling Him. It's definitely my favorite book in the series so far. We still have Leeway to get through. But I have to say I think more of the series as a whole and all of the brothers, and not necessarily this book. And while I think of the whole series and all of the books in the Gold Rush Ranch, Off to the Races, I think about that book itself specifically and scenes from that book more often. And when I think of Unraveling Him, it's usually more in context of the whole series and all the Bailey's brothers together, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to give it Off to the Races. Oh, that's such a hard choice. Oh. Honestly, any of these 16 books you could read and probably love. Oh my gosh. This is so hard. Okay. Oop. Yeah. Awkwardly. Okay. I'm gonna do like so. And I'm gonna pop that up a little bit and just shift it over so we're more centered. Okay. Alrighty, so we are done with our semifinals. We're gonna zoom back out. We are almost done, so I'm going to save as where we're at. And switch to a PNG, and we are at round 4. Okay, so we are here to our final round. We've got our 2 finalists, Off to the Races versus Single Dad Seeks Juliet. I gotta do it. I just gotta do it. I just gotta do it. I can't think about it. Gut reaction. Off to the Races. I keep saying this, but just it touched me in ways that I very rarely have been touched in before. And I feel like the steam is a little bit better. I loved the horses. I loved Vaughn. I can't believe this is her debut book. It's the first book in the series. And the series as a whole is amazing, so I am kind of including all those in there. Alright, yep, that's it. Off to the Races is our winner. The best contemporary read of 2021 in the romance genre for me this year is Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. Congratulations, Elsie! And Off to the Races, Billy and Vaughn and Dee Dee, our lovely little racehorse. Oh my gosh, this is a little bit easier and tougher. Like, it was tougher earlier on than I thought it might be. But once we kind of got down to these number 2, because I've been sitting here talking about it for a little while, it was a little bit of an easier decision, and I just had to knee-jerk it. And I'm happy with this being my number 1 contemporary book of the year. Honestly, any of these books you could pick up, any of these 16, or honestly any of the 5-star books that I read this past year. You can look in my tags section. I have a little word bubble over here, a word collage, word cloud, something like that, whatever you want to call them. That's all my tags. So definitely look through either the contemporary romance or the 5-star ones. But I'm super happy. I'm pleased. Off to the Races. It is our winner. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as Romance Bracket Final. It is done. We are official. And we are going to save. And there we have it. So next I will probably do historical, so stay tuned for that video. And I will be back soon. Thank you.